Well, how's it going? I'm Christian. I'm here with Akeem and Mr. Michael Garmaise.
Our English teacher from first
semester.
First semester, yeah. Right.
So how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you very much. And yourselves?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
So how did you become a teacher? Like, talk about that.
I guess I probably always wanted to. I mean, from the time we were little kids and we have blackboards with chalk and all that, I think it's because I enjoyed taking chalk and writing on the blackboard.
And how about English, precisely? Like, how did you get into English as a specification, I guess?
I never told you that in class, did I?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no?
My field of studies is classics, ancient Greek, ancient Roman, history, mythology, archaeology, all of that. And I studied classics right up to the doctoral level. I did high school teaching for 2 years, mostly English, just by default, even though that wasn't what I was trained to do.
I remember you saying that you didn't like high school, teaching at...
Yeah, I mean, it was altogether different. But when I went on the job market, I went to Vanier. I could have applied to history, could have applied to English, humanities, whatever. Anyway, that particular moment, it was English. So I said, okay, I'm going to try English. And they interviewed me. And though I didn't have a degree in English, they looked at what my credentials were and said, okay, let's take a chance. I think this might work. So I'm an English teacher who hasn't actually taken an English course after the CEGEP.
And you didn't have to take one to become an English teacher at Vanier? Like, they didn't make you...
No, because they looked at my background. They saw the 2 years of high school teaching, which was secondary 4, secondary 5 English, along with North American literature and 20th century history and all that. So they knew that I knew what kids are studying right up until the point that they reach CEGEP. I was going to say also in terms of teaching, as a student, I never really had bad experiences as a student. I mean, from elementary school right through high school, through CEGEP to university, I always liked school. So from that point of view, it was always a very comfortable environment for me.
So like, what are the differences between being a student, because you were a student once, and being a teacher now?
It sounds like a joke, but it's not. And I tell my students this when they are distracting me. I say, when you become teachers, statistically, some of you will become teachers, you'll be shocked when you're at the front of the room how much you can see and hear from the back. And as a student, I thought that I was more or less invisible, and I wasn't.
Okay. Huh. So that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah, good to know.
And as a student, I didn't think much about what the teachers were doing in terms of preparation time or how they packaged their lectures, or their talks. Sometimes I enjoyed it, sometimes I didn't. As a teacher, I'm aware that I have something that I want to cover, but can I do this in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour? What should I do with the material in order to either spread it out or collapse it? And that is something I wouldn't have been aware of as a student.
Okay.
And what about course packs? Like, how do you... Like, I've wondered this, because when I came to college, I saw that teachers made course packs and all for the course.
Yes.
How does that work? Like, how do you make it? How do you print it?
I start off by deciding that I don't want to assign novels.
Okay.
I've almost never assigned novels, only a couple of times, because if I did, then I would bypass the course packs perhaps and go through the print shop and have things ordered that way. So the first thing is I decide it's going to be a course with all short readings. And the course pack is ideal because I can go to 15 or 20 different sources, grab what I need, and then put it all in the course pack.
I think that makes it easier actually for students as opposed to novels. I mean, they're lighter, they're shorter stories. Doesn't make it easier necessarily, but it just makes it more like accessible, I guess. Because everything's there, right? You have like the exercises and the readings in one book usually, right? So it makes it more, I don't know.
In the course packs.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And do you still teach your, you taught a humor course?
Humor and satire, so I teach that. I'm still teaching it. The format is more or less what it's been all along, except, that I do take suggestions from students. I give opportunities for people to critique me when the course is over. And there were more than one student who complained about the older readings. They don't like Roman stuff, and they don't like this, they don't like that. And one student said, maybe you should change the title to reflect more the fact that you're doing more older literature, but okay. It's now 20th century humor and satire.
Okay. Oh, really? You actually changed it?
I did.
Okay, well.
So I did cut out the ancient Roman material, and I did cut out the stuff from the 1800s. And so that's what it is now, truth in advertising.
And have you worked at other CEGEPs? Or?
No.
Okay.
When I was on the job market, I probably applied to more than one. I think I applied also to Marianopolis. I think I applied to Dawson. I was interviewed by Dawson after my first semester at Vanier, but it would have been for a humanities job.
Okay. Okay. And you preferred English?
I like English because I never get bored. I can change the material whenever I want. The only main drawback is that there's a lot of marking. Had I been one semester sooner or one semester later, I might have been a history teacher or a humanities teacher. That would have been all right, but it would have been also kind of different.
Mm-hmm. And I guess there would have been less marking.
I mean, it depends on the teacher, like what kind of exams they give and all of that.
Probably. But I mean, with English, you have to have essays. It's like part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Probably. By default, you'd have more.
Well, there's a ministry, like up in Quebec City. I mean, they set certain rules about what we teach. And then there's my department right here at Vanier, and departmental competencies and standards and requirements and things like that. So I do have to work within a certain framework. Even so, I'm pleased with the amount of freedom that I do have.
So how long have you been working here?
I started in fall of 2005. So I finished 13 years. I'm on my 14th, aren't I?
Mm-hmm. Oh, impressive.
Yeah, mathematics, yeah.
What makes a good teacher from a bad teacher, in your opinion?
A number of things. I guess the good teacher is really quite well organized and structured and all that. I mean, I get compliments sometimes from students who say, "Yeah, you're very structured. I know exactly what we're going to do and when we're going to do it." The good teacher also has to have a gift for talking. You know, clear, well organized, articulate, being able to think fast on one's feet. I discovered, I shouldn't be saying this in an interview, I discovered only recently that I'm an ummer. Problem was that I was giving my students some extra credit by going to some of the public lectures, you know, the symposia that take place in the theater and all that. And they were talking about one or the other of the presenters who were not all that articulate, and they did a lot of filler and pausing and ums, and I must have said something to suggest that, good, at least I don't do that, and someone politely said, "You do." I know I went through a phase a long time ago where every second sentence started with "basically," and I cured myself of that by forcing myself to use the word "essentially" instead of "basically," and then I weaned myself off of "essentially" and stopped saying anything like that.
Oh, good, I guess.
Yeah. I remember I had a teacher who kept saying "okay," like twice a minute. I actually counted.
Okay.
I have a question. How has teaching evolved? Like now with technology and all, I'm sure it's different than how it was back in the day.
That's the main thing, is the technology. And I was brought up and started teaching comfortably with what we call chalk and talk. You know, the blackboard and me talking to you all top down. And so it's changed more, is involving the students more in what we do in the class. I still enjoy lecturing and talking and all that, and I try to give room to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions and to give feedback, to engage in discussions with each other. You know, the group work, that kind of thing.
So, have you ever actually gone on, like, Rate My Teacher and actually seen what people say about your class?
Oh, yeah. I do that once a semester.
Really?
Certainly, yeah. And I find a lot of what they say is true.
Okay.
The good stuff and the bad stuff. Both cases, I think it's fairly true.
But do you think, like, teachers are kind of reluctant to see what students are saying about them?
Rate my students. Pretty cool.
That should be a thing. But, yeah.
Yeah, because in private conversations, I've had teachers say specifically that they look rarely or they don't look at all because of that, because they have been burned by comments that they don't think are really accurate or representative. I've joked, actually, about Rate My Students.
Okay, like it should be a thing?
There is no such thing, but I think it would be funny if there were.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So on Rate My Teachers, what kind of bad and good things have you seen about yourself?
Okay, I'll start with the bad. People really don't like that I'm obsessed with cell phones, and I don't like cell phone use in the class.
That's for every... Yeah.
Sometimes they don't like that I take attendance every class, and occasionally, I mean...
They cannot skip. They cannot, like, stay at home.
I encourage them not to, but sometimes they do. But let's say I've had a student walk out of the class right in the middle, like let's say to visit the washroom or check a phone or something like that, and then they go over and I lock the door, and then they can't really get back in. Okay. And so I've gotten criticized for that. What else? Being nerdish, being a nerd. Students saying, well, I get really, really bored in class, but I sit there and laugh at his nerdiness, so I guess it's okay. And I react, if their English is better at the end of the 15 weeks, I don't really care. And the good stuff, ironically, sometimes people talk about my enthusiasm or my passion. Okay. And I've never particularly valued passion as a really positive value. And yet when people say, oh, you know, Garmaise is passionate about his teaching, I say, well, yeah, I guess that's true. Sometimes they say, oh, he's really knowledgeable. Sometimes they talk about my sense of humor. I have a good one. Or they'll say he's quirky or he's strange, but he's a good guy. Anyway, so it's a mix of good and bad, and I think there's accuracy altogether.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. It was nice seeing you again.
Nice seeing you.